Implementing quality control provides significant benefits to the importer, such as minimizing the risk and associated costs linked to quality, loading, warehousing, or non-compliance issues. For example, you can avoid products rejected by customs because the country of origin sticker is not in English. It also ensures contractual obligations are met, like design specs, packing requirements, printing, and delivery. It helps avoid rejected delivery due to issues such as a wrong barcode or packaging colors. It also spots potential issues before shipping rather than upon delivery and creates a trusted supplier pool base, which further reduces future costs. If you're ordering an existing product, an effective method is to request and examine samples of existing products from your supplier. Use the samples to determine if the quality meets your standards or work through gaps with the manufacturer. Try to request samples during a visit for clearer communication. Once quality is up to par, then place a larger order. As you can imagine, this is one area where references are very useful. Many importers use inspection companies to verify quality and quantity of their order at the factory. The buyer can decide when to perform the inspection, at the beginning, middle, or very end of the production process, or even during the loading of the container, but the most common is pre-shipment, otherwise known as PSI. The production inspection is an efficient way of protecting your business against potential manufacturing wrongdoings from the factory. If you're using a letter of credit as a payment mechanism, include the inspection certificate in the documents remitted to the bank to trigger the final payment. Thus, the factory cannot get payment unless the buyer approves the inspection report. The cost for an inspection might be difficult to forecast, since most companies charge extra expenses for the inspector, travel, meals, and hotels. Other items to consider with regards to inspections include audits and laboratory testing, which are a little bit more technical and, in effect, more costly. Let's take a quick snapshot of a standard inspection process. The buyer sends his specifications to the factory. The buyer sends an approved sample to the inspection company. The inspector goes to the factory on the selected date and starts by counting the number of closed cartons ready to be inspected. Among these, he selects randomly the cartons he will actually inspect. Inside these selected cartons, the inspector picks the products that he will actually check. The number of pieces to select is given by the ISO 2859 standard. For instance, out of a 35,000 piece lot, a regular sampling level would result in 315 pieces actually checked. The inspector performs the importer's requested test, records every defect or discrepancy he finds, and creates the inspection report, which includes a pass or fail result. Based on this report, the client can decide what to do with the shipment. Ongoing sourcing from a foreign supplier requires continuous management. Quality control is a tool to implement that, as it allows you to establish strong supplier relationships thousands of miles away and allows you to significantly reduce the risk linked to importing. To ensure the relationship is sustainable, implement monitoring tools for quality, pricing, and other contractual obligations. Your import project should include a contingency supplier should problems arise. Intellectual property, otherwise known as IP, protection can be a problem in many countries due to weak regulations or enforcement. If IP protection is critical, consider a strategy of never letting a single supplier see your whole product. That means sourcing components from different suppliers and possibly assembling the final product in the US. You may also leave one critical component to be added in the US and only provide information on a need-to-know basis. To further protect yourself, work with an intellectual property attorney to ensure you have the maximum legal protection in a specific country before technology or IP is transferred. Effective import management means that the importer needs to manage information throughout the import process, which includes cash, purchase, and logistics cycles. Understanding and mapping each of these information areas is important to staying on top of the importation process and avoiding complications. Importers should map out the payment flow, that means your receipts and expenses, from time of order to time of final payment, and include when payments are due throughout the supply chain. The importer should also map out receivables, when payments from customers are to be received. The gap between expenses and receivables will identify any financial exposure until all products are sold, and will serve as a tool when negotiating and finalizing payment terms. The importer should also map out the flow and sequence of information and activities within the purchase cycle. The purchase cycle begins with the request for quote and finishes with a commercial invoice. The chart will map out what documents and information needs to be issued and received and when. It'll also identify who is responsible for submitting and ensuring the documents or information are received. Similar to Incoterms, this chart will assist in identifying who is responsible for each leg of the cycle between the buyer and the supplier. Lastly, the importer should also map out the steps to move your product from the supplier in country X to your warehouse. Within each step, outline responsibilities of the importer and the supplier. For importer responsibilities, identify who in your company is responsible for what step. This concludes Section 4, which discussed supplier selection, management, and quality control. We also looked at developing flowcharts and process maps for each cycle. This helps importers understand how the import process works, what needs to be done at each step, and what are the supporting documents. By taking a process management approach, an importer minimizes risk, avoids mistakes and misunderstandings, and at the end of the day, really reduces unnecessary cost. Select the next section to continue learning about global sourcing essentials. Thanks for joining us.